We're going to do our paper review now, and I'm going to start with the front of the Irish Times, Sports Thursday, which is this is the battle for our ages. This is exactly what we want. It's Con O'Callaghan versus David Clifford, proven sharpshooters with contrasting ruthless styles set for final shootout. Right. So, who's going to have the better career, Owen?
Con O'Callaghan. Con O'Callaghan will win more All-Irelands. He will, by dint of that fact, win more All-Stars and will be a more decorated player than David Clifford. But
he'll be considered the better player from his peers.
I think David Clifford will. I think David Clifford will. It's just a hunch at the moment, but I think David Clifford is. I think he's a better footballer now than Con O'Callaghan is right now. They're the two best forwards in the country.
This is Messi versus Ronaldo.
Yeah,
and Messi is Clifford, and Ronaldo is.
That's the thing.
Because Con is going to get everything out of his talent.
Yeah, and there's only one winner in Messi and Ronaldo, isn't there? We're talking player individually, aren't we? Only one winner.
Well, you can look at the 3 Champions Leagues in a row. You can look at.
Yeah, but I'm talking player by his peers, everyone.
Yeah. That's exactly it. I think Messi Ronaldo is actually kind of a spot-on argument. Like, who will look back on their club career with a greater joy between Messi and Ronaldo? Probably Ronaldo. In terms of their.
See, I think Messi's under. Yeah.
In terms of their club career, who will?
Oh yeah. So well, they've won and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, as well, Ronaldo doesn't back himself at any point, so it's going to be more than Messi. Better player, there's no question. Obviously, it's Lionel Messi. He's the greatest of all time. But those Champions League medals, the cold, ruthless manner in which they managed to annex them over the past couple of years, I think that took Ronaldo to a different level with which you talk about him in terms of who was the most successful. And I think we will have a very similar situation. I don't think Clifford will have a more successful career than Con. Con will win tons and tons of All-Irelands still to come.
It's good, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Clifford has a chance, though, because his teammates are pretty good and he's the leader of a team that are going to emerge. But it is definitely, this is their first All-Ireland final against each other, but we're going to start thinking about these two as the big beasts of Gaelic football.
Yeah,
for the next decade.
And that's the thing, it's for the next decade. It's not like, well, to be fair with Messi and Ronaldo, you kind of got to appreciate it all the way up because they were so good from such a young age. And
unless Con goes to play hurling after the 5 in a row and goes, right, I've done that now.
Well, that is the other thing. The other thing is Con hasn't actually won a 5 in a row. Maybe he'll do his own personal 5 in a row before actually leaving. What is it? Three in a row for him this year.
He'll be 23 then.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he's a hurler as well kind of adds a little bit to the whole, maybe they're both Messi. You know, Tommy Walsh did sit here and go, at the moment he's the best hurler in the country. Yeah. Like 18 months ago. You're like, all right. Yeah. Right, so that's that from the Irish Times.
The Irish Examiner this morning leads with their interview with Shane Ryan, or interviews about Shane Ryan, really. It's Owen Cormacan's piece on page 5. The headline is, reluctant goalie, coaxed between the posts, but Ryan can handle the heat. Tommy Martin then is saying Jack McCaffrey is the human face of Dublin's austere dominance, while Dr. Ed Collin is saying thank Dublin for moving Gaelic football forward. Forward thinking, meanwhile, Stephen Kenny wants to maximise Ireland's attacking talent, while Irish keeper Travers saves 3 penalties to spare Bournemouth's blushes in the Carabao Cup last night. And finally, Boxing Clever changes for Murray as Ireland look beyond box kick.
Yeah, the headline in the Indo is historic Dubs v Kerry final would attract 120,000 fans. GAA said the ticket frenzy for the special occasion is extending beyond the competing counties. So, I mean, this is one we talked about a couple of weeks ago, that it wasn't necessarily attracting the crowds coming in. The neutrals, but it's, I mean, that's obviously the big PR spin there, Jay, you know that.
It's because it's 5 in a row, right? I think it's Dublin Kerry, and I think people want to see if Kerry might have a kick in them in a team.
Yeah, I'm not sure you'd be a better place to say it. I think that both of these teams have an allure to them in terms of actually seeing them in the flesh. And I think a lot of people have seen this Dublin team at this point, but I think this has definitely been the year where Kerry have kind of come on scene and people actually want to see, well, what's it like to actually see all these players together, this kind of newfound team, 17 players in their first All-Irelands. There is kind of an element of history to that, where even if they lose, people are like, well, I saw them that day, and when they do eventually get their All-Ireland, well, we know the moment that they realise what it took to actually win an All-Ireland.
Well, that's how it will be as well. The other bit in there as well, Tomas Quinn talking about Dermot Connolly could be the match winner. Do you think he'll get game time this weekend?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'd be surprised if the game is level with 10 minutes left to go and they're having trouble getting the ball into the full forward line and they look at the bench and they see Connolly and they don't bring him on.
Yeah.
But if they're winning handy...
Yeah, it's almost the emergency. It's all's lost, get him on. And I don't see it being that way. I just think it'll still be... If Kerry are in it, it'll be in the balance. And I don't know.
I think if the game's in the balance, you stick him on.
Yeah.
I know, but I mean, in the balance, I'm thinking Kerry might be in it, but they're still going to be 2 or 3 down. I think I see that's the way.
At which point you're bringing on defensive substitutes to just tie it up.
Yeah, or you're bringing on Paddy Andrews or Kevin McManaman, somebody who's actually fulfilled that role over the last couple of years and get the ball in their hand, run the ball. There is kind of a sense of the unknown about Connolly, which is why you would bring him in if that's needed.
He can do that though as well, that's the thing. Jerry Thornley has an Ireland team, sorry, I should have said that for the game against Wales at the weekend. He's got Will Allison at fullback. It's Conway and Jacob Stockdale on the wings. Stockdale kind of getting a bit of extra game time, so go out there and just remind everybody that you're not crap. It's Bundy Aki and Chris Farrell at 12 and 13, Kieran Marmie in scrum half, and Jack Carty out half. The front row is Dave Kilcoyne, Niall Scannell and John Ryan. So with the injury to Cian Healy, Kilcoyne's going to get a bit of game time and might be playing his way into the team. Scannell definitely has a chance to play his way into the team, and John Ryan's clearly back up at this point. Then it's James Ryan and Ian Henderson, who I think is probably going to be our starting partnership. And Tyke Byrne, Peter Mahoney's at 7, and Jack Conan is at 8. So this is another way of looking at the back row, and it's an opportunity for Jack Conan to go in and prove his worth.
Yeah, a lot of people getting on the Jack Conan bandwagon. He deserves to get a shot. I see Jacob Stockdale cut his hair.
Shaved his head, did he?
Didn't shave his head.
Not quite.
Just got the locks
mullet
cut.
on.
Yeah, there is no mullet anymore. It would have been a tough job for the hairdresser, but I think it's the opposite of Samson anyway. Hopefully that it gives him his strength back, actually, cutting his hair. And he's obviously had a bad day last week, and the hair's done nothing for him, is what the word on the street is.
There you go. That's what it's all about. Sure, Kev got his World Cup hairdo as well. Did you shave it at the start? Is that what happened?
No, halfway. Gary Breen shaved it for me.
Halfway through?
Yeah, Breeny had the haircut, and come on, Kev, get it done. Didn't like myself for the shaved head.
No, really?
No, it didn't suit me, I don't think.
You weren't thuggy enough. I'm not a thug.
Yeah.
Although I look like one for this week. Next week.
True that you hit the ball better when you've got a shaved head?
No, I'd say that's not the
absolute
case.
nonsense, right? No, I just wanted to double check.
You really asked that question,
Yeah,
didn't
no,
you?
honestly.
Back page of the Irish Daily Mail is give us a break, don't bring up funding if Dubs win, says Mossy Quinn, and Murray backs Best to stamp his authority again.
I like the top of the headline there, Gaza.
He says, I didn't realise what I was in for after flute stunt.
You would remember that, Owen, probably, would you, when he did that, when he scored? It was obviously one of the Old Firm games when he scored, didn't he? Or it might have actually been I don't think it was an Old Firm game.
I think he said he did it twice, it says there.
Did he do it in an Old Firm game, though? I don't think he did.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Did he definitely?
I think so, no?
Yeah,
I thought he did it in the...
That's Rangers jersey. Yeah, McEwen's lager on the...
Yeah, but I don't think it was an Old Firm game he did it.
Oh, sorry, right.
I think he did it obviously playing for Rangers, but he didn't, obviously. I think McCoist and the lads wound him up and said, yeah, when you score, just do that. And he went, yeah, all right, then I'll do that. And anyway.
They're good friends. Owen Franks was left out of the All Black squad. This was after the game where they got annihilated by Australia. He got dropped from the team. So he's played 108 tests, won the World Cup in 2011, won the World Cup in 2015, and was in the team until about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Pretty ruthless decision by the All Blacks. If a player's not playing in the build-up to the World Cup, don't bring him.
Yeah.
Rory Best on the bench this weekend for Ireland. It's a different situation, is it?
Yeah, well, it's about just hitting this perfectly in your stride. It's no different to any other week in a Six Nations or any other week in Test Rugby. You play the team that's in form, and if you think that your player will not be in form in 4 weeks' time, then what's the point in actually bringing them? There is no room for sentimentality. We know the pressure that are on the All Blacks. You'd imagine that Joe Schmidt has put the same level of pressure on himself. Given what happened last year, given that we're going into a World Cup that a lot of people have high expectations for, even if you take everything that happened in the Six Nations into account, you'd imagine that he will be dealing with the same level of ruthlessness. Don't bring a player if he's not going to contribute anything.
I don't know about that, Owen. I think there's still an element of he's been such a big part of that dressing room, and I'm sure he's got such an influence. Like, if you're talking about any player, you know, the talk of Rory Best not starting and not even going. I've heard some people suggesting, but he has been a massive part of what he's brought to the dressing room, what he's brought to the team over the last few years, and I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily go along with that.
But on Best, he can contribute something even off the pitch. Like we've spoken about that this week, and as captain of the team, he can certainly do that. But if your role is as an excellent prop, a world-class prop, and you are no longer producing world-class performances, then don't bring that player. The thing that is the wild card is Rory Best as captain and as leader, and that is the thing that he can contribute at this point, it seems.
Yeah.
Darragh O'Shea is topping the Darragh O'Shea, Kieran Kilkenny, David Clifford, Conor Callaghan group. Conor Callaghan in second. As it stands, David Clifford not making it out. What about all those under 17 and under 18 All-Irelands?
Are all the O'Sheas up at this time of the morning already vaulting? Is that what it is?
We've
done the end. Oh, sorry, the reason I got that out was because I wanted to get to this, right? So, Kev, you might have a view on this.
Go on, I'm not with this.
Neil Francis Collins this morning. The selection of mediocre imports ahead of Irishmen has to stop.
Oh, God.
Klein isn't good enough for South Africa, so why has he been fast-tracked onto our national team?
Why is it, can I just say the original line, why is it just mediocre imports? Whether the world-class imports, they shouldn't be picked.
He's saying here that unless somebody is 25% better than their direct opponent who is Irish, I think that for imports to get into the national side, they should be 20 to 25% better than their immediate indigenous rival.
Why should they being better players make them better suited to play than someone who isn't?
Tyke Byrne is an infinitely superior player to Klein, but it seems that the choice of the plane ticket is down to him.
Yeah, well...
And Klein, who is 25% better than who here? He's saying that like they've obviously made this decision to go with it, but we're getting players who aren't even good enough.
Yeah, I know. I get the point. I just think it should be it should be zero tolerance, however you want to term it. Getting imports in just to shoehorn them in at some stage at youth level or whatever it will be, bring them over so they can stay for 4 or 5 years. I think it was 5 years originally. Has it gone to 3 now? It's nonsense. It shouldn't happen. It should simply not happen. It's making a farce of international sport now. That's the way I'd see that. Yeah.
I have some sympathy with people who come and live and move for work. So, like we all, the Irish went around the world and moved for work.
But that's not the argument, though, is it? The argument is that players are being brought over at young ages simply to come over and play at, whether it be Leinster, Munster, whichever one of the provinces it would be, and then they're being nationalised, and that's going against all the system of bringing lads through up to 2021, and then all of a sudden they're being cast aside for someone that's coming in from abroad.
Your point is that it's cynical.
Well, it's not right. It can't be right. That can't ever be right. And I think it's not just rugby. It's most other sports now. It's nonsense. Yeah.
He mentions here already Ultan Delan has been ditched from the squad. Delan might not be the type of player that Schmidt typically wants. A guy who plays by the numbers and knows where he's supposed to be and what his coach wants him to do in any given situation in the field. But he's a better rugby player than Klein, and less importantly, it seems, he is Irish. I love Ultan Delan. I love seeing him burst on the scene, and it is disappointing that John Klein plays 2 games for Ireland and is now on the verge of making the World Cup squad.
And that was, you would say it's kind of a premeditated decision as well, given how close to the World Cup John Klein suddenly became available to play for Ireland. So Joe Schmidt saw this 3 years out, and you do wonder if it's like, well, I've planned this all the way now, I have to give it a go. And let's face it, all he's done so far is give it a go. He's just played 2 warm-up matches. There is no commitment from Joe Schmidt that he is going to go with him. Like, for all we know, Tyke Byrne might shoot the lights out this weekend, although Byrne is starting in the back row this weekend, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, does that change things at all? Maybe it doesn't. And maybe John Klein is still ahead of him in the pecking order. But maybe Joe Schmidt is like, that's it, 3 years, it was worth a try. He got his professional contract. He had a good life in Munster. This hasn't worked out, John. You're not coming on the World Cup. And that could happen. You do get the sense that this was down to the IRFU to make this happen, and they might actually have to stick with it now.
But international sport, the big clubs, whether it be rugby, football, whichever sport you're talking about here now, it is just becoming like clubs. That's what it is. And the distinction of playing for your country has got to stand alone, and it isn't becoming that anymore. So, yeah, that rule, I don't agree with it in any way, shape or form, no.
Going up to 5 years, obviously, is what's now happened, as opposed to the 3-year residency rule. Does that make it more palatable?
No, not really, no. Jay's point is spot on, where if people are coming over to live and the families are living here and you become nationalised, but not when you're coming over specifically to come in and just dropped into a team at 19, 20, 21, whatever age they're going to be. I just think the whole system is skewed then. And you can imagine the bitterness from some players that have got to a certain level. They've had to fall away from it. I can imagine the bitterness that's within the sport now because they're being overlooked at certain ages. I can never agree with that, no.
It is hard.
Well, they're not Irish, are they? That's what it is. They're not Irish, and it's just they've been put into a team for the sake of it. And just because you learn the national anthem, or just because you do, or you pump your chest or whatever it will be, they're not Irish, and that's the distinction of playing for your country, and it isn't that anymore. No.
And do you think that like it's never worth it, despite the fact that they've obviously brought so much to Ireland on a competitive level? Like, who knows if we would have won the Grand Slam last year without CJ Stander as our starting eight? Who knows what level we would have dropped if we didn't have Bundyaki even in and around our midfield, even just pushing the standard forward? It's never worth that, really, is it? Like, in your point of view?
I don't think so. No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't agree with it. No, I don't.
Because like, it's interesting how this kind of goes in peaks and troughs, and it's obviously the time to be bringing forward that opinion as well, given John Klein's performance last weekend. I just find sometimes that the difference in timing is interesting, that after a successful Six Nations or something like that, it's not mentioned as much in certain quarters.
I think it is. I think the point is he's literally taken the place of somebody on the plane in a 31-man squad, and people are slitting each other's throats in training, and they have been for the last 6 months to try and get in the squad, and he wasn't part of that setup, wasn't doing any of that kind of stuff, and now is straight in. So it's convenient to have somebody who comes in a position that you thought you weren't particularly strong. I don't know. It definitely, it is the most naked example of it happening that we've had in such a long period of time.
Because of the timing of it.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, it's fairly obvious what's happened here, that he has just become naturalised just in time for the World Cup. And the Sun this morning goes with Kenny's not so keen to talk, no backroom guarantees. So Stephen Kenny is keen to leave talk of his future Ireland backroom team on the back burner. The under-21 manager will replace Mick McCarthy as senior boss on August 1st next year, but the backroom staff is still a mystery. Robbie Keane's admission that his FAI contract lasts beyond 2020 has led to speculation that he will be involved in the backroom team.
I didn't know that. It just passed me by that Robbie's contract is longer than Mick's.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, isn't it? It is crazy. I think did Robbie talk about it when he was taking the Middlesbrough job? I think I think it was asked of him then.
Right.
And Robbie was asked the question, said, "Yeah, my contract is longer, or it does take me beyond Mick's contract." Yeah. It's.
What's he going to do?
He said, if they don't want me, no problem. Keane said this. So this is speaking in June, as you said, like when talking at Middlesbrough, he said, the FAI want me to stay on here. My contract is longer than the managers. They want me to hang on. I will be here. If they don't want me, no problem.
Yeah, it's going to be there's going to be problems, isn't there? There's going to be problems. They'll have to sit down together. Does Stephen Kenny want Robbie Keane part of his staff? Because you can imagine that Stephen Kenny's now building something with the 21s. You would think that 21 team that he's got around him, or the under-21s coaching staff that he's got around him, would be naturally just prepared to step up to the senior side.
Otherwise, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Like this, unless one of them stays behind as the 21s boss.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, that is true. But yeah, you've got the medical team that are in place, and they will continue to be in place. But certainly his immediate staff, the 3 or 4 or 5 members, whatever it's going to be that's around him. It's we see more, aren't we? How many times we've said it now with the FAI, trouble ahead. It's just
kick that can down the road.
It is, isn't it? It is just. Tell you what, let's just do it. It'll be grand. We'll sort it now. 2 or 3 years down the line, there'll be no issues. We'll be fine. People forget about it.
Yeah.
And here we are again.
Maybe they hope Robbie gets a job.
Yeah. But this is a footballing issue. All the stuff that's happened around it, the mess that's been created has been off the field stuff. This is certainly got more of an influence on the team itself.
Well, Stephen Kenny probably doesn't want somebody foisted on him, irrespective of who it is. You could be the world's best assistant coach, but like, do you really want somebody when you're already coming in going, these are my ideas, what we're going to do? And
yeah,
it's like,
possibly. I mean, you do see it a lot, certainly at club level, don't you, where coaching staff are part of the very fabric of the club. I'm thinking immediately now, Chris Hughton would spring to mind when he was at Spurs for years. He served under so many different managers, but he was the club's man. And he served under every manager brilliantly.
Yeah.
So that's not always the case, but you're right in saying that. I mean, there could be that one that Robbie could be the link for Stephen Kenny when he steps up.
Maybe.
That could be the other thing. So
the only thing is that Robbie is on the record as saying he wants to manage the country at some point. So like his ambition is to be the manager.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want your number 2 to be constantly like, well, I wouldn't have done that way. I think that maybe. I'm not saying that he would, but it's always there.
I don't think that'd be the case, but I mean, Keith's involved, and I generally haven't spoken to Keith about it, where he's going to go and what he wants to do, but I'm sure in the back of Keith's mind, while he's coaching and what he's doing, he would want to manage at some stage further down the line. That's the reality of whoever's been with Stephen Kenny. Stephen Kenny will know that himself. Whoever you're with, then you've got that ambition to manage yourself at some stage.
Yeah, okay, so it's there all the time.
Yeah, I would think so.
All right.
I would think so.
So it's not that big a deal?
No.
All right, fair enough. What have you got?
The Herald, I think, Kev.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, again, it's Tomas Quinn talking about Dermot Conley. Dublin's trump card, saying he could be the match winner against the Kingdom. And then the other headline is on Stephen Cluxton, how he became the most influential player of his time, which is what we spoke about earlier. And well, does he carry on? I don't know. Does he play until his 40s? Certainly, he's got the fitness and everything to do that, hasn't he?
He does, totally.
Does he become a sub-goalkeeper for Dublin? Does there come
Would he do that?
a time when, say, the people in training are like, actually, you've lost a little bit of power off that boot. You can't actually go over the top of the midfield if we are required to do it. Evan Comerford is here. He's able to ping them as good as Sean Patton or as good as anybody else in the country. And Stephen, you've been a fantastic leader. We'd love you to hang around and wear number 16.
No, I don't see that. But what's the point at his age?
Come on. He's the greatest competitor of his generation.
No chance.
And you're saying he's going to be happy to sit in the bench?
Okay, not happy to sit in the bench. Come and fight for your place.
Well, no chance. No chance. If he's told he's not...
Great players have been dropped all the time and have been told to fight for their place.
I mean, yeah. Famously, Mick McCarthy...
Yeah, I understand. If you're 21, 22...
in Irish football.
But at that age as well, like, is there not some sort of last vestiges of actually trying to...
Yeah, but you hear constantly about the sacrifices that the county players make. I couldn't see that. No, not sit on a bench across a season or 2 seasons. No, I wouldn't think that'd be the case. No, not. Yeah, certainly considering how the level that he's played at.
The Star this morning, let them enjoy it. Quinn wants funding debate to take a back seat if Dublin win 5 in a row. So there's a nuanced conversation from Mossy yesterday. He was saying that will they be let enjoy it? The players themselves, anyone connected with the group will absolutely enjoy it if they're fortunate enough to come through on Sunday. For me, conversations like that, I don't have an issue talking about them. I don't think there's a reason it shouldn't be discussed. But for me, talking about it immediately afterwards, just like Dublin do get over the line on Sunday and it turns into a conversation in the hours later, I think that's probably doing a disservice to the team. And I think that your point that like no one's ever going to do this again should be taken as these players. I don't know if the Dubs are going to do a 5 in a row again. Kerry are getting their house in order. Cork getting their house in order. Like Mayo aren't really going to go away. There's no way that they should just roll into another 5 in a row after this.
It has coincided with Kerry in transition and Cork being in a shambles. We have to accept that. They are two of the superpowers.
They're in shambles for a large part of it. Meath coming back from their lowest ebb ever.
Yeah, it's definitely like Mayo really have been the only part of this 5 in a row. Okay, Kerry as well certainly, but Mayo really have been the only one that have been able to do it, that have been able to actually try and give them a run for their money in serious fashion over the last 4 or 5 years. So I don't know. It's maybe that's part of it as well, and maybe when you do have superpowers at their pomp, when you have more than one superpower at their peak, it might actually be a different kind of landscape we look at.
Yeah, Jim McGuinness left. Would have been great to see Jim McGuinness again another year ago to see what would have happened.
Think he'll come back? Think Jim McGuinness will come back?
I don't know. I think there's been enough good jobs that, like, surely Kildare rang to see what's the story. Surely some other counties have tested the water to see what the crack is. But I think he wants to do football, right? That's the plan, is he's going to be a football coach no matter what.